What is up, everybody? Another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. As you can see, different background today. Out of town for me. Got to take care of some work stuff. Join me once again. We got Justin Ruderman. Justin, how you doing?
Doing well, man. We're nearing the end of this MLS season. It's crazy. We only got one game left. It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, wild finish. I don't think we need to talk too much about like the recaps or just things that happened. Obviously, we know LAFC beat Austin. What was it, like 4-2? I think that was expected. I think some of the things that kind of just stood out for me is obviously also on the other side, LA Galaxy got knocked out as well. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about individual player who's been solid for LAFC all the way out, and just scoring goals, being effective. That's Denis Bouanga. What have you liked about Denis Bouanga, and obviously in this run he's been in 2023 for the Black and Gold?
Yeah, I mean, what can you really say? I mean, he's been incredible. I I don't even know how to put it into words, to be honest. The best I can say is just historic. I mean, the third highest goal scoring player for MLS in all competitions in a single calendar year, passing Zlatan Ibrahimovic. In this past game with the brace, he scored 5 in the past 2 games. He scored 19 in MLS. He scored 32 in all competitions. It's genuinely incredible. And when you think about Joseph Martinez in 2018 and Carlos Vela in 2019 being the only 2 players in MLS history to have scored more than Denis Bouanga in a calendar year in all competitions, you think it kind of puts into perspective, I think, how incredible this year is, because when we look back on those seasons, we look back on those as 2 of the greatest MLS season performances ever. Now, granted, most of their goals came, of course, in the MLS season, where Denis Bouanga has spread them across all competitions. But you can make an argument that makes it even more impressive that he's doing it all the way in Costa Rica, scoring a hat trick there, that he's, doing it in Leagues Cup against Mexican teams. He's doing it, all over the place. So I think it's really incredible what he's done. And there's really no understating how important he is to this team. And, we can get into that MVP debate because he's now locking up that Golden Boot, really. He's 3 goals ahead of Luciano Acosta now with 1 game to go. And it's becoming, time to talk about MVP because that Golden Boot is nearly locked up.
Yeah, he has 19 goals, 7 assists in a year. That's obviously throughout MLS. And you mentioned, what was it, 32, 31 something goals throughout, the CONCACAF Champions League, and everything that he's done throughout this season has been very, very, very impressive. And to me, it's like, yeah, how do you not consider Denis Bouanga in the MVP race, right? Even with 1 game, because he's been so important, so crucial. And I think it's one of those things too. Like NFL AFC are able to finish second, in the standings and all. Like it's going to be kind of hard not to give it to Denny. Obviously, we're biased. We get to see him every single day. We get to see, we get to see how effective he's been. And there's plenty of other players that are around the league that have been very, very impressive as well. But like just the workload that he's had to do, the miles he's had to travel for all these competitions with club, but also with country, because he has to go to the other side. He has to fly over the ocean, and was it the Atlantic Ocean, and come back and forth. So yeah, it's been very impressive, and for him just to be in shape and to have no injuries, fingers crossed and everything. It's very, very impressive, and hopefully he can continue this run throughout the playoffs.
No, it's a great point that you make about the injuries, because people don't consider it, but the amount he plays, the travel that he endures, and the pace in which he plays, he stays so fit. And that's what's incredible about him, because he said that from minute 1. Like, I want to play every 3 days. We asked him that, at the beginning of the year, because he had an incredible work rate, especially for those first 20 games or whatever it was. He just continued to play and start every single game. And you thought, there's no way he can continue to do it, but he just continued to do it. And he said, Denny, do you want to rest? No, I want to play. Are you sure? Are you good? Yeah, I'm good. I want to play. And not only did he want to play, he kept scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring. And that is why you say, to me, he is, should be more of an MVP favorite than he is. Right now, it seems like it's going to go to Luciano Acosta. And it seems like even Roman Berkey's probably in that second slot in the MVP voting. which to me, I completely, understand the incredible seasons that the two of them have had and the successes that their team has had, right? That is really the thing that they have over Bouanga is the success of their teams, especially when you look at Luciano Acosta leading his team, of course, to a supporter shield. But to me, there's two parts to the argument, right? There's the stats in which I think they're all very close, right? Berkey has been one of the greatest goalkeepers we've probably ever seen in MLS. He's prevented, I think, 12 goals over his expected this season, which is, like 3 halves as much as anybody else in MLS. Luciano Acosta is, top of goal contributions, but, he's actually behind Bouanga when you take away penalties, right? So there's that. But again, there's the second part to me, and that is when you talk about most valuable player, that means who is most valuable to their team. And I think when you look at Roman Berkey, he's crucial leader in St. Louis, but if you take him out of that team, they still have a pretty good team, right? They might be able to find another goalkeeper who can not be nearly as good as him, but they'll still win a lot of games, right? You take Luciano Acosta out of Cincinnati, sure, they're not as good, but they're still probably a very, very good team. The argument there being they had a club record sale in Brenner, a guy who scored 18 goals last season. They somehow got even better after that sale, right? You take Denis Bouanga away from LAFC, they turn into Austin FC, right? They go, it's not even an exaggeration. He's directly contributed to over 50% of LAFC goals this season. He is so important. He scores in the biggest moment. He's the only person to score in the Champions League final. He nearly won the Campeones Cup for them. Every moment he's the guy showing up. And I think if you take him away, LAFC goes from one of the best teams to one of the most underperforming teams that you can imagine. And that to me is what most valuable is all about.
Yeah, look, you certainly make the case for Denny, and obviously, like I said, we're gonna be more biased. We see him every day. Yeah, and I think that the one tough part is the one tough one is gonna be Luciano Acosta, because yeah, what he's done just in that midfield and being the number 10 and everything, and the like, it's FC Cincinnati, and I think everybody around the league like, well, LFC has already won, like Carlos Vela's already won, like they won, and they have all these big names and all these different things. So that's why I feel like he may not get it, but you're right. Like without Denny, LAFC is just not that good. It hasn't been that good, and we've seen it when Denis Bouanga doesn't impact the game, score, get an assist. They're not as good as you expect them to be, especially with all the other players that they have. And that's just credit to the effort, the work Denny has been doing, being able to stay in shape, like not be able to like get any like certain injuries. And I think those are things that you do outside of the pitch, outside of everything. You're eating right, making sure your body's right, and all these different, making sure your mind's right, making sure you come into every game, every practice, and everything. Is just like the professionalism and the work ethic. It's so impressive.
And John Thorrington is thanking his lucky stars that he hit on Denis Bouanga, because if that would have been a signing that didn't hit, LAFC would not be in a very good position, and everybody would be pointing fingers at the moves being made. Denis Bouanga has saved this team.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over. Let's talk about the LA Galaxy. Look, they got knocked out of the playoffs. No one's surprised, right? They, especially with the injuries they've had. They have like 5 season-ending injuries. I think that Chris Klein happened earlier this year. The boycott. They had so many different things that happened for this club. Some that were expected, some that were not. And they finally were put out their misery. They're not making the playoffs. Now there's questions to be talked about. Greg Vanney, should he come back, right? Obviously, I don't think Chicharito is going to come back. Ricky Puig, I mean, you have to imagine he's concerned. He has to feel like he has to look for other options. You know what I'm saying? After such a bad year like this, it has to be in his train of thought that like, man, maybe I can go somewhere else, or maybe I can push for a move, because he's right now in his prime of his career, right? When you're what is like 25, 26. Let me get his actual age.
24. I want to say.
I'll look at 24 years old. He's 24 years old, right? If you're Ricky Puig and you're 24 years old, right? This is like you're in your prime of your career. you don't want to go back to a Galaxy team that one doesn't have a foundation, played like this again. So he's also kind of, you has to be feeling like, man, let me look elsewhere, right? So there's a lot of things going on for the other Galaxy. I think the one thing you and I have hit on is just the offseason moves and everything that Will Kuntz has been able to do. I think that now I feel like the Galaxy have a foundation with who's bringing in the moves. They're making smart business. They're making smart business moves of who to bring in, who to gel with, and all these things. Now that I think they get an early start for 2024, right? As October, you can already start moving forward and looking forward to the next year, right? Because this year is pretty much done. So yeah, I think when I look at this, what are your thoughts on Greg Vanney? Would you like for him to come back? I know there's a lot of people are like, well, you can't predict those injuries and all these different things.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where, people forget that they finished fourth in the league in the West last season, and kind of everybody thinks like, oh, Vanny's been here for 3 years and he's had, this type of failure, 3 years in, and it's a huge regression from last year, I think is the fair argument. But at the same time, you do point out those injuries, right? And I think Greg Vanney talked about yesterday or the other day about, those first 10 games were just brutal for the Galaxy and it didn't go their way. And once you're in such a big hole in the first 10 games, I think they won one of those first 10 games. It just makes the rest of the season very, very difficult. And that's what he talked about. And he's right. And I think, at the same point, he should take some of the blame. But I don't expect him to go. I think that I tweeted this out on Upper 90 actually recently. I think that they're a very similar position to Austin FC right now, right? They're a team with high preseason expectations who unbelievably underperformed. They had some drama in the front office that led to, their sporting director leaving, replaced now in both cases. And they have a coach who's under fire, but I don't think will leave in either case, right? Josh Wolf and Greg Vanney. So I think they're both very similar teams, and something I didn't put in the tweet, but it's true. They're both going to have huge off seasons. They're both going to have huge roster turnover this offseason. And I think that's the thing that Galaxy fans have to remember, especially the ones who want Vanny out, is that he's going to have an entirely new roster to work with, hopefully with Ricky Puig still there to work around. And that's going to be really crucial. Whether it's the Galaxy or Austin FC. But I think when you look at what Will Kuntz did, as you mentioned, he's going to have now 2 DP spots to work with, and that's a lot to give him, right? We know that he was going after Douglas Costa, right? Didn't get that quite over the line, but that's the type of player that
You Douglas Costa, you mean?
Sorry,
Chucky
not Douglas
Lozano?
Costa. Chucky Lozano. Sorry, I don't know why I said Douglas Costa. Chucky Lozano went after Chucky Lozano and didn't get him, right? So that's the type of player that they're going after. So I think that it's going to be a really, really active offseason for LA Galaxy.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a big year, a big offseason year, and I think next year, to me, it's like I'm just one of those people that's just like, I've seen Greg Vanney for 3 years. Obviously, look, the injuries, 5-season injuries are things you can't do, right? The roster limitations, that was not on his. That you can't blame him for that. I just think there's just certain things that he couldn't get Joveljic going, right? He never was. That's something that a coach can do and can change. He was never able to get Joveljic going and really mixing him, because Joveljic was a goal scorer, but I think Joveljic this year just gave up on Greg Vanney. Like, he wanted out. There's been reports that he wanted out. He wanted a trade. LA Galaxy didn't want to do the trade because they wanted to get their money back. And I just look at certain things like that. When you have a goal scorer, you have certain things like you got to be able to get those players to play when a Chicharito goes out, right? Like, Chicharito's done. Okay, Joveljic, this is where you time to shine. And for whatever reason, it just never felt like he really believed in Joveljic. And him and Greg Vanney just had like this riff. It's going back to last year. And those things, if you're a great coach or a solid coach, even if you have those things with those players, you have to make it work. Like, great coaches make it work, right? I'm not saying like, because if Joveljic got it going, it would have been a completely different season. But it just shows me that like certain things that you can change within players, you can have that communication. Even if you're having a bad year, you can have players that are going to still want to have your back and all that. It just felt like certain players didn't really believe in him. And obviously, when this season happens, there's a lot of players that don't believe in him. They have to be feeling that way. That don't believe in the process, and I think they need a new voice. Because when you go through such a bad of a season, like it comes, people start tuning you out, man. People like players, start tuning you out because the results aren't coming in, right? You ain't getting the wins. Why is this player starting? Why is this different things? And it was such a bad year for them. Some things you can blame on Greg Vanney, some things you can't blame on him. But I think if there's an option for Will Kuntz, a better coaching option, or someone you can bring in, I think they heavily have to consider it, because I know the fans want it, and I know they can't have another year like this, especially now under Will Kuntz, who we know can make really, really good business moves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a key point that you bring up. If there's a better coaching option, and I think that there may not be at this time, right? I mean, Greg Vanney gets let go, he's snatched up immediately by another MLS team. There's no question about that. But is there really a coach out there that Galaxy can attract right now, in a position where they can, dispatch of Greg Vanney? I'm not sure about that. And again, I don't think there's a reason to believe that Greg Vanney can't be that guy to turn them back around, given a new revamped roster. I don't think there's necessarily a reason to believe he can be that guy. Besides, he's done it before, but can he still do it now is kind of the question, right? And I think, his past track record shows that he has, obviously knows how to do it in MLS. Obviously, it's an evolving league, and I think that's what Galaxy fans will definitely say. But I don't think there's any reason, as I said, to believe he can't be that guy to turn the back around.
Yeah, I mean, you give him 1 more year. I just think a lot of fans have given up on him. Like a lot of fans have given up on him.
No, I get
Just
that.
what I'm saying. Just what I'm seeing, right? Obviously, when you have a terrible year like this, that's gonna happen. I just think they need a new voice in that locker room. That's just what it is. Sometimes you just need that, and when you have a new voice, look, we saw obviously when Bob Bradley got let go with Steve Cherundolo. Right, like that was many people would say that was not necessarily an upgrade. It was just like you know what I'm saying, like because of going from Bob to Steve, like right, Steve was unproven when it was unknown, but look what happened. Granted, right, there was talent there, right? Granted, there was talent there, but they need, even Carlos Vela said that they needed a new voice. It was a breath of fresh air, and I think that's what they may need in the LA Galaxy organization in the locker room, because after 3 years, that's a lot of time in this game.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting comparison for sure, because I mean that 2019 team under Bob Bradley was incredible, right? But then 2020, not so much, and he had to go. So that maybe that's the position that Vanney was in. That fourth was his good year, and then it fell off. We're gonna have to find out, but I think we will find out, because I'm not sure Vanney is gonna go.
Yeah, I think if you make the switch, you got to make it within this next 2 months, or within the next month, so you can let the guys know what's going on. Hey, this is what's gonna happen. Yeah, because it's next month is already November, which is crazy. So
Yeah, and MLS just today announced their off-season schedule for all those type of things. The first date, I believe, to really look out for is December 1st, which is
wow.
yeah, or exactly. Already so quick is the deadline for contract options for your players, right? So whether that's club or player contract options, you got to pick those up by December 1st, which of course is still before MLS Cup. So very, very soon. Pay attention to it, and then of course the rest of them coming throughout, whether that's the super draft or free agent signings and things like that. So it's going to be a really active offseason, I think.
Yeah. Well, look, guys, that's all the time we have. Short pod, a lot going on today for both of us. But yeah, thank you guys for listening in. For Justin, this is Jill. Catch you guys next time. Bye.